This conference will now be recorded.
Hello? Hello? Hello, students?
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Are you able to hear?
Yes, sir.
Oh. So, good morning, everybody. Last class, I have stopped somewhere in the diseases of the gallbladder. I think I have completed the etiopathogenesis and types of gallstones. So, we now go to inflammation of the gallbladder, that is called cholecystitis. Cholecystitis means inflammation of gallbladder. It may be acute or chronic, or acute over the chronic. So acute cholecystitis is uncommon. It may be mild and may resolve, but sometimes it may persist with systemic symptoms like fever, high-grade fever, nausea, vomiting, pain in the right hypochondrium and other things, and it could be a surgical emergency. So unless the gallbladder is removed, there may be some complications. So acute is less common compared to chronic cholecystitis. So we will first discuss acute cholecystitis. Acute cholecystitis is diffuse inflammation of the gallbladder secondary to obstruction of gallbladder outlet. You know that gallbladder is connected to the common bile duct through cystic duct. So the bile drains into common bile duct through cystic duct. So when the cystic duct is obstructed by a stone, then it will cause acute cholecystitis, just like acute appendicitis, which in 60 to 80% of cases caused by obstruction of the lumen by fecalith. So just like that, in 90% of cases, acute cholecystitis is caused by stone obstructing the neck of the gallbladder or cystic duct. In 10%, there is no such association, and it is due to bacterial infection secondary to sepsis, burns, or other conditions. Pathologically, gallbladder appears tense, distended with bile, greenish or reddish bile, and the stone is obstructing the cystic duct. Serosa is congested. There is fibrous exudate covering the surface of the gallbladder. Cut section, wall is edematous, congested, and infiltrated by acute and chronic inflammatory cells. Clinical features first. There is a patient will have a right upper quadrant pain, that is the region of gallbladder, biliary colic, and which may resolve in mild cases. But if it persists, and particularly when it is associated with nausea, vomiting, fever, high-grade fever, chills, leukocytosis, then one has to think of cholecystectomy, that is removal of the gallbladder. Otherwise, the complications may arise. The complications include empyema. Empyema means pus in the gallbladder lumen. Pus is because of secondary infection. And gangrene. Gangrene is there is vascular compromise. Ischemia due to inflammation will lead to Gangrene. Gangrene is putrefactive infection superadded on necrosis. And ultimately the gallbladder wall becomes thin and becomes perforated. Perforation leads to peritonitis, that is called biliary peritonitis. Bile escapes into the peritoneal cavity, and there it causes infection. Is generally made by ultrasonography. So that is about the acute cholecystitis. Chronic cholecystitis is more common and almost always associated with stones in the gallbladder. Stones in the gallbladder is called polylithiasis. And so, inflammation, chronic inflammation of gallbladder, that is cholecystitis, is because of abnormal bile that is predisposing to stone formation, that is supersaturation of bile with cholesterol or bile pigment that predisposes to both gallstone formation and also inflammation. So abnormal bile causing injury to the wall, that is the cause of cholecystitis, inflammation. But it may be, there may be secondary inflammation also, but primarily it is because of abnormal bile. And in some patients, repeated attacks of mild acute cholecystitis may become chronic. What are the clinical features of chronic cholecystitis? In chronic cholecystitis, clinical features are not so severe, but there is pain in the right hypochondrium region, that is where the gallbladder is situated, colicky abdominal pain in the epigastrium or right hypochondrium. Usually the patient is obese, fat, fertile, multiparous, a female above the age of 40 or 50. So same risk factors as per gallstones, 5 or 6 F's I have already mentioned in etiopathogenesis of gallbladder stone formation. So the same or predisposing factors are present in the case of chronic cholecystitis. There may be abdominal distension or epigastric discomfort after a fatty meal, constant dull ache in the right hypochondrium, that is the region of gallbladder, and also epigastrium. There is a tenderness over the right upper abdomen, and nausea and flatulence may be seen. So these are the clinical features of chronic cholecystitis. So ultrasonography is diagnostic. You can visualize in plain X-ray gallstones if the calcium content is high. If the calcium content is not high, you may need contrast medium, or sometimes the plain X-ray may show thickening of the gallbladder. Ultrasonography is diagnostic. You can see the thickening of the gallbladder and variation in size of the gallbladder. So when you find all these things, the treatment is cholecystectomy, removal of the gallbladder. So gallbladder may contain stones, and grossly gallbladder is generally contracted, small in size, but it may be normal or enlarged. The wall of the gallbladder is thickened, which on cut section appears gray white due to dense fibrosis, which may be calcified. So this is the specimen of gallbladder, which shows thickening of fibrous thickening of the wall. The wall is thickened, whitish because of fibrous tissue, and lumen contains stones, hemorrhagic, ulcerated, mucosa, and all these things. So mucosal folds may be intact or thickened or flattened or atrophied or ulcerated, whatever it may be. The lumen generally contains multiple mixed stones or combined stones. And histologically, if you take a section from the gallbladder wall, examine microscopically, the wall is thickened by fibrosis, mucosa is congested, and there is penetration of mucosa deep into the wall of the gallbladder up to the muscular layer to form Rokitansky-Assoff sinuses. Rokitansky-Assoff sinuses. I will show that picture. This is the section of gallbladder in chronic polycystitis, low power view. Above you can see the mucous glands and surface epithelium, cuboidal or columnar epithelium. A small bit is there, and mucosa is inflamed, infiltrated by mononuclear inflammatory cells. But deep within the wall, that is where the muscular tissue is there. Muscular tissue can be identified as a pinkish tissue, smooth muscle wall. That shows irregular glands with lumen formation. They are these glands are surrounded by muscle fibers. So this is just the extension of mucosa in deep into the wall of the gallbladder. So these structures are called Rokitansky-Assoff sinuses. Rokitansky-Assoff sinuses. So that is a important finding in chronic cholecystitis, and there is variable degree of inflammation surrounding the Rokitansky-Assoff sinuses. Inflammatory cells include mainly lymphocytes, plasma cells, and macrophages, and they are present in the lamina propria as well as in the subserosal layer also. And there is dense fibrosis. Fibrosis may replace muscle tissue. It may involve the serosa, subserosa, or subepithelial layers. So this is the low power view of chronic polycystitis. This is a high power view with inflammatory cells and fibrosis surrounding Rokitansky-Assoff sinuses. The mucosa is there, mucosal folds are there in the upper part of the section. So this is chronic polycystitis. So close to the mucosa, lumen, if you focus the lumen, the lining columnar epithelium is there, and that is infiltrated by acute and chronic inflammatory cells. Sometimes the chronic polycystitis may be acute. In acute, you will find acute inflammatory cells, chiefly neutrophils. In chronic polycystitis, you will find mostly mononuclear inflammatory cells. That means lymphocytes, plasma cells, and macrophages. And sometimes polycystitis may be acute over the chronic. Acute over chronic. That means both acute inflammatory cells, neutrophils, as well as chronic inflammatory cells, lymphocytes, plasma cells, and macrophages. All may be there. So this appears to be acute over chronic polycystitis because few neutrophil or nuclear dust or neutrophil also there mixed with chronic inflammatory cells. So complications of chronic polycystitis is, one of the complications is porcelain gallbladder. Porcelain gallbladder, where it is a late complication of chronic polycystitis, where you will find deposition of calcium in the fibrous wall. Deposition of calcium in the fibrous wall, and the gallbladder becomes shrunken or maybe distended, or it may be hard because of chronic inflammation, fibrosis, and dystrophic calcification. So wherever there is fibrosis, in long-standing cases of fibrosis, you may find a dystrophic calcification. So gallbladder wall is calcified. You can see in the you can see here right side picture, plain X-ray of abdomen, which shows on the right side gallbladder. the outline of the gallbladder is visible in plain X-ray. This is because of calcification. A cyst-like structure is there in the X-ray, plain X-ray of the abdomen, and wall is visible, radio opaque, because of calcification of the gallbladder. So calcification of gallbladder is known as porcelain gallbladder. Porcelain gallbladder. On the other side, you will see specimen of gallbladder radiographed, X-ray of the specimen of gallbladder, which shows clearly calcification of the wall. So this is a predisposing condition for carcinoma of the gallbladder. Porcelain gallbladder is a predisposing condition for adenocarcinoma of gallbladder. Another condition which is interesting in a variant of chronic polycystitis is strawberry gallbladder. Strawberry gallbladder mucosa shows somewhat a tiger skin appearance. Tiger skin appearance with yellow stripes and specks. Yellow stripes and specks. So this is the mucosal appearance in strawberry gallbladder. It is also called polysterosis. Polysterosis, that because this condition is due to deposition of cholesterol in the gallbladder mucosa. The mucosa shows a polyp, polypoidal or polyp, and the polyp contains pale appearing or clear appearing bulbous rounded structures. The stroma contains macrophages which are containing cholesterol esters. They are foamy macrophages which can be seen in strawberry gallbladder or polysterosis, polypoidal polysterosis. A foamy macrophages within the lamina propria form an intraluminal polyp. So these two are variants of chronic polycystitis, porcelain gallbladder and strawberry gallbladder. Now we go to carcinoma of the gallbladder. Carcinoma of gallbladder. Cancer may arise from the gallbladder. It is rare but occurs more commonly in females after the age of 70 years. So there is always a history of gallstones or porcelain gallbladder, and bile salts are believed to play the role of carcinogens. Now morphology. The tumor grossly appears as polypoidal or infiltrating. Tumors may be infiltrating with diffuse gallbladder thickening and induration, or there may be exophytic, intraluminal growth, growing into the tumor, growing into the lumen as irregular cauliflower-like mass. Microscopically, both types are adenocarcinomas. Adenocarcinomas, histologically, they may vary from papillary to infiltrating glands that can range from moderately differentiated to undifferentiated or poorly differentiated. Moderately differentiated means there is well-formed glands or papillae. In undifferentiated, there is poor formation of glands. Sometimes there may be squamous metaplasia or adenosquamous type, carcinoid or mesenchymal variants can also occur. How the tumor spreads? Carcinoma of gallbladder. If you recollect the normal anatomy of the gallbladder is situated in the inferior surface of the liver. It is in the liver bed, inferior surface of the liver, right lobe of the liver. So immediate spread occurs to the liver. That is local invasion to the liver. Yeah, then the tumor may extend to involve the cystic duct. or it may metastasize to lymph nodes in the porta hepatis, and distant seeding may occur. Metastatic spread may occur to the peritoneum, viscera, and lungs. So that is about the diseases of the gallbladder. Most important conditions in gallbladder: gallstones, acute cholecystitis, chronic cholecystitis, porcelain gallbladder, carcinoma of the gallbladder. Sometimes cholesterolosis may be also be asked, but these questions carry only 4 marks or 2 marks. Now we go to the diseases of the pancreas. Pancreas is another important structure related to the gastrointestinal tract. It is actually an organ with 2 types of tissues. One is exocrine portion, and another is endocrine portion. Pancreas is a leaf-like structure. The head of the pancreas is seen in the duodenal loop, and then follows the body and tail. There are 3 parts in pancreas: head, body, and tail. Head is seen in the duodenal curve or duodenal loop. Tail is close to the spleen. So in between you find the body of the pancreas. So functionally there are 2 portions of the function. Structurally and functionally there are 2 portions in the pancreas: exocrine portion and endocrine portion. Exocrine portion comprises 80 to 90% of pancreas. That is composed of acinar cells and ducts. Acinar cells produce digestive enzymes such as amylase, lipase, trypsin, chymotrypsin, and deliver these into the lumen of the duodenum. These are digestive enzymes. There are at least 20 digestive enzymes produced by the pancreas for digestion of food. And amylase, for example, amylase digests carbohydrates, starch. Lipase digests fat. Trypsin and chymotrypsin digest proteins. So there are a number of enzymes which digest various components of the diet. And the endocrine portion mainly consists of islets of Langerhans, not Langhans. Langhans Jane cells, they are different. These are Langerhans islets of Langerhans. These are endocrine cells seen in clusters in the stroma or parenchyma, in the interstitium or stroma of the pancreas. So these islet cells secrete a number of hormones. Each set of islet cells secrete a different hormone. Most important, insulin and glucagon. Beta islet cells secrete insulin. Alpha islet cells secrete glucagon. So you can see we are now concerned with the diseases of the exocrine glands, exocrine pancreas, because we are discussing in connection with the gastrointestinal diseases. Therefore, liver, pancreas, all these structures are important. So exocrine pancreas, most of the exocrine secretions are produced and stored as enzymatically inert proenzymes to prevent auto-digestion. That means, I will read out first, then I will explain. The acinar cells store the proenzymes in the cytoplasm of SNR cells as secretory granules, zymogen granules, trypsinogen, chymotrypsinogen, procarboxypeptidase, and proelastase. These are activated normally in the lumen of the duodenum by enteropeptidases present in the duodenal lumen in an alkaline medium. So, the pancreatic enzymes are produced by SNR cells. They are produced in precursor forms, inactive forms of enzymes. That's why they are called proenzymes. Pro means precursor enzymes, not activated yet. They are also called zymogen granules. So these granules are proenzymes known as trypsinogen. That means trypsin is active enzymes. Trypsinogen is a precursor inactive enzyme. Similarly, chymotrypsinogen is precursor enzyme. Chymotrypsin is active enzyme. So these inactive enzymes are carried by pancreatic ducts, and major pancreatic duct joins with biliary duct, common bile duct, and then a common opening occurs into the second part of the duodenum in the region of ampulla of Vater. Ampulla of Vater. So the bile is an alkaline medium. So in the alkaline medium provided in the lumen of the duodenum, the enteropeptidases act. These enzymes are produced by duodenal mucosal cells, and they act on proenzymes and activate the enzymes. Proenzymes are converted into active enzymes. Trypsin, chymotrypsin, elastase. These enzymes digest foodstuffs. So unless the pancreatic juice enters the duodenum, the enzymes are not activated. If they are activated, means that will cause auto digestion of the pancreas. So that is the disease that produces inflammation. So the condition of acute pancreatitis is because of auto digestion of the prematurely activated enzymes produced by pancreas itself. So as a result of digestive function, there is inflammation of the gland. Acute pancreatitis is acute inflammation of the pancreas caused by premature activation of these digestive enzymes in pancreatic substance. So there is destruction of pancreas and peripancreatic tissues. There is destruction of pancreas and peripancreatic tissues. So acute pancreatitis affects 10 to 20 per 1 lakh population in Western countries. The most common cause of pancreatitis are gallstones and alcohol ingestion, chronic alcoholism. These two account for 70 to 80% of cases of acute pancreatitis. Acute pancreatitis may be mild, it may resolve. It is self-limited, it could resolve. But at the other extreme, you will find severe inflammation, that is called acute hemorrhagic pancreatitis, which is an abdominal emergency, surgical emergency. It is an emergency condition. Sorry, it is an emergency condition which could be fatal. So it is a medical emergency. So one should make a diagnosis of acute pancreatitis. It is one of the causes of acute abdomen, severe acute abdomen, which may enter into differential diagnosis with perforated peptic ulcer, acute cholecystitis, acute appendicitis, and mesenteric thrombosis. These are all severe abdominal conditions which have to be differentiated. So 80% of cases due to the presence of gallstones, polylithiasis, which is common in females, and also alcohol abuse, which is common in males. So apart from these 70-80% of cases, rest of the cases are due to some metabolic or toxic causes. Apart from alcohol, drugs like corticosteroids, thiazide diuretics, azathioprine, hypercalcemia, hyperlipidemia, vascular or poor perfusion in conditions of shock, atherosclerosis, hypothermia, polyarthritis nodosa, infections like mumps. These are other conditions which are associated with acute appendicitis. Acute appendicitis. And this is the picture. Just recollect the anatomy of the gallbladder, biliary tract, and the leaf-like structure, that is pancreas and duodenum. So, pancreatic duct, major pancreatic duct joins common bile duct in the lower end to form a common duct which empties into the duodenum at the ampulla of Vater. That is number one. At the in the region of ampulla of Vater, the common bile duct opens after joining the major pancreatic duct. So, if there is, for example, if there is a stone, gallstone in the ampulla of Vater, that is number 2, then what happens? The bile, which is alkaline, which is irritating, will enter into the pancreatic duct, and there the proenzymes become activated. In the alkaline medium, the proenzymes become activated, become enzymes, and enzymes digest the pancreas and peripancreatic tissues. This digestion causes destruction and severe inflammation. That is acute pancreatitis. So, major causes of acute pancreatitis is one is gallstones, association with gallstones, and association with alcohol, chronic alcoholism. So we will discuss these two, how they produce acute pancreatitis. So the impaction of gallstone distal to the site of union of common bile duct and pancreatic duct results in reflux of bile into the pancreatic duct, resulting in toxic injury to the pancreatic acini. So this is, I have already explained. The increased intraductal pressure leads to enzymatic leakage from pancreatic ducts. Pancreatic proenzymes, zymogens, are inappropriately activated, allowing autodigestion of pancreatic tissue. And it is believed that conversion of trypsinogen to trypsin is central to the activation of the cascade. The main enzyme that is first and foremost activated is trypsin. Trypsinogen is a precursor enzyme. Trypsinogen is activated to trypsin. Trypsin then activates a number of other enzymes like phospholipase, prophospholipase, or elastase, chymotrypsin, like that. Other enzymes are activated by trypsin. So that is how the gallstones produce acute pancreatitis. But how Alcohol induces acute pancreatitis. Chronic alcohol ingestion may also produce increased intraductal pressure due to several mechanisms. One is it increases the production of protein-rich pancreatic fluid, which can form solid plaques in small pancreatic ducts, causing obstruction. So normally, along with protein, electrolytes and water is also secreted into the ducts. But in chronic alcoholism, only protein is secreted into the ducts, not much of water or electrolytes. Therefore, the protein precipitates within the pancreatic ducts and forms a plaques, solid plaques. These plaques obstruct the lumen of the pancreatic ducts. So when there is obstruction, there is retention of the secretions and activation of proenzymes to enzymes. So this is one mechanism. Another mechanism is the spasm of sphincter of Oddi in the ampulla of Vater, that also raises the pressure within the pancreatic duct system, activating the enzymes. Obstruction itself activates enzymes, and pressure pushes the activated enzymes into the interstitium of the pancreas, causing digestion or destruction of the pancreas and peripancreatic tissues. And third mechanism is alcohol stimulates SNR cells, causing premature release and activation of various lytic enzymes. So these are various enzymes. Direct SNR injury is also caused by, apart from alcohol, the other agents like viruses, drugs, and trauma can also cause SNR injury, leading to premature release and activation of these lytic enzymes. So once the enzymes are activated within the pancreas, not in the duodenum. In the duodenum, they will cause digestion of food. When the enzymes are activated and released into the pancreatic tissue, they will cause widespread destruction. The pancreas contains, apart from the acini and ducts, it also contains interstitial tissue, adipose tissue, blood vessels, and other things. All these are destroyed by various enzymes. For example, lipases cause fat necrosis. Lipase, fat, neutral fat. Fatty tissue contains neutral fat as esters of fatty acids. Glycerol and fatty acid forms neutral fat. Glycerol combined with fatty acid forms neutral fat. So the neutral fat in the fat cell is split by lipase. What happens? You will find glycerol plus higher fatty acids. So this leads to fat necrosis. Phospholipases are present in cell membranes. So these enzymes cause destruction of the cell membranes. Proteases, proteins are present in widely in intracellularly and extracellularly. So proteases cause destruction of pancreatic parenchyma and other tissues also. And in severe cases, they also cause destruction of the endocrine islets of Langerhans. So when the beta cells are destroyed, that will produce hyperglycemia, that is diabetes mellitus. Diabetes mellitus. That occurs in severe cases. When the endocrine islets are destroyed, beta islet cells are destroyed, diabetes mellitus appears. And elastase, another enzyme produced by pancreas. Elastase and other enzymes produce vascular damage. Blood vessels contains elastase, internal elastic lamina, external elastic lamina. The elastic tissue is destroyed. That means the blood vessel ruptures. Rupture of blood vessel results in hemorrhage into the pancreas and peripancreatic tissues. When there is hemorrhage, you will find the tissue is appearing brownish or blackish or reddish. depending upon the age of hemorrhage. So dark hemorrhages appear within the pancreatic tissue. So all these are events which describe acute hemorrhagic pancreatitis. It is a serious condition, serious abdominal condition. So you can see this is the pancreas, specimen of pancreas. Head region shows prominently dilated ducts, and parenchyma appears gray white or yellowish white. Yellow appearance because of fat tissue, yellow white because of fatty fat necrosis, and the fatty acids may be combined with calcium, forming calcium soaps, or calcium precipitation appears as chalky white precipitates, whitish precipitates. So this is a variegated appearance which is seen in the head of the pancreas. But if you look at the rest of the pancreas, the body and tail, it appears dark, hemorrhagic, because of intense hemorrhage. I have told you the elastases destroy the elastic tissue in the blood vessels. The blood vessels rupture, causing intrapancreatic hemorrhage. When there is intrapancreatic hemorrhage, the hemorrhagic areas appear dark. So this is the appearance of acute hemorrhagic pancreatitis. The lighter areas I highlighted here, head of the head region, highlighted here. You can see here purely yellow tissue, that is normal fat. Yellow white appearing tissue, or gray white, yellow white appearing tissue, that is areas of fat necrosis. And whitish specks, streaks, whitish, pure whitish appearance, that is calcium deposition, chalky appearance. Calcium is deposited. So the cut surface of pancreas in less severe cases of acute pancreatitis shows numerous yellow-white foci of fat necrosis. So this is the gross appearance of pancreas in acute hemorrhagic pancreatitis. Clinical features: acute pancreatitis, it may be mild, it may go unnoticed, sometimes it may resolve. It may resolve. For example, it may be associated with surgery or trauma or mild injury. But it may resolve. That is one extreme. At the other extreme, you will find severe hemorrhagic pancreatitis, acute hemorrhagic pancreatitis, which is a serious condition. The symptoms are severe central abdominal pain, that is the region of pancreas, severe central abdominal pain of sudden onset after a bout of alcohol or heavy fatty meal. Patient develops a severe sudden acute abdominal pain, central abdomen, in the region of central abdomen, and pain radiates to the back, and pain is associated with nausea and vomiting. And on clinical examination, you will find tachycardia, fever, jaundice, sometimes jaundice, and shock. Patient may be in a state of shock, hypotension, and ileus, rigid abdomen, boat-like abdomen, rigid abdomen, and discoloration around the umbilicus, reddish discoloration around the umbilicus, that is called Cullen's sign, and the reddish discoloration in the flanks may be seen, that is called Gray Turner's sign. So these are the signs and symptoms of acute hemorrhagic pancreatitis. Acute hemorrhagic pancreatitis. Ultrasonography and CT are helpful. They are diagnostic. And complications. Complications. First, I will discuss the diagnosis. Diagnosis of acute pancreatitis is made by elevated serum amylase enzymes. These enzymes, which are intrapancreatic in acute inflammation, they are released into the circulation. So the serum amylase levels are elevated within 24 hours, and within 48 hours or 72 hours, another enzyme, lipase, his levels are also elevated in the blood. So these are the enzymes which are elevation of these enzymes is diagnostic of acute pancreatitis. Along with it, there is evidence of pancreatic swelling on ultrasonography and CT, and liver function tests tend to be deranged. There may be elevation of bilirubin, jaundice, which is reflected in the form of jaundice. There is also elevation of alkaline phosphatase, albumin, and other things. So these are investigations which are helpful in acute pancreatitis. So diagnosis, another important test is serum calcium levels. If serum calcium levels are low, that is hypocalcemia. That is a grave prognostic sign. The low calcium levels in the blood are because the calcium is deposited in the pancreas. So that if that sign is present, the prognosis is bad. So management is by physiological support, treatment of pain, shock, respiratory failure. There are other associated findings. I will tell you in the complications. There are local complications affecting the pancreas. Local complications are development of pancreatic pseudocyst. I will discuss what it is. And secondary infection with bacteria may produce abscess. And the gastrointestinal complications include gastric and duodenal erosions, obstructions of the duodenal obstruction, bleeding, intestinal obstruction, and systemic complications. Systemic inflammatory syndrome appears, and this will result in shock, hypotension, renal failure, acute respiratory distress syndrome, ARDS, hyperglycemia because of destruction of endocrine pancreas, hypocalcemia, peritonitis. Inflammation of peritoneum is called peritonitis, and peritoneal fluid may be found in the peritoneal cavity. So these are local and systemic complications. Some of the systemic complications could be fatal. Fatality rate is high. So mortality is 10 to 15%. Of course, it is negligible in mild cases, but up to 15% with severe hemorrhagic pancreatitis. Death may be due to shock, renal failure, sepsis, secondary sepsis, respiratory failure because of development of acute respiratory distress syndrome. And for all this, the contributory factors are being protease induced complement. So there are many activated proteolytic enzymes in the blood. So the activated proteolytic enzymes will not keep quiet. They will injure the blood vessels. They will cause activation of complement, kinin system, fibrinolytic system. So disseminated intravascular coagulation may occur. So there are various adverse effects may develop because of the release of these active proteolytic enzymes into the circulation, and fat necrosis may occur subcutaneously far away from the site of pancreas. So this is about acute pancreatitis. Acute pancreatitis. So I will stop the my lecture here. I will stop my lecture here. See, 1 hour is over. I will continue in the next class. The remaining topics in pancreatic diseases, that is chronic pancreatitis, pancreatic carcinoma, and others. Okay, thank you. Double click. Stop recording. Okay.